Hi, I'm Janet with Try It Like It Created, and today I'm going to show you how to make 4 unique pairs of earrings out of one soda can. The first thing we need to do is cut into the soda can, and if you look to see, there is a seam that runs along one part of your can, and that's the part that I would cut up this way. So to begin, we're going to cut off the top, and the parts that we want are basically this flat part right here. It's easy to do with a pair of scissors, and you just poke in and cut. So we want to cut the top and the bottom off. Just be careful with your hands. It can cut you if you're not careful. So if you have trouble getting into the bottom part, go ahead and cut down that seam first. And then you can access along the bottom. And then you can discard the top and the bottom. We're not going to use that today. And then you just want to flatten this out some. And we're going to clean off anything that's left on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and use just a baby wipe to clean off this inside part. And then I'm going to take my can and cut it down into parts just to make it easier to use and apply the different techniques. So we'll just start with the first one. Now the very easiest thing to do is to find the colored area and just die cut out your shapes, and that would make for a very nice looking piece. What we're going to do is use washi tape. So I have chosen 3 rolls of washi tape that look like they go together well. So I am just going to lay them down on here. You could use, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and put a little bit of glue if you don't think the washi tape will hold well. And so just going to put some white tacky glue down. All right, so I went and got a bigger bottle. So I'm going to put some white tacky glue down, and I'm just going to blend this on here with my finger. Be careful of your edges. And you can see it's not going to hold great, but it'll work fine for our purpose. And then I'm going to put my washi tape down. I went ahead and wiped off the excess of the glue, and then I'm just going to cut off the overlap. And then this is ready to be die cut. All right, for the next version, we're going to be using vinyl. This is a great project for any leftover vinyl. I happen to have some cut down into strips here. And so what I'm going to do is just create kind of a random pattern on my aluminum. You could actually do this on either side if you wanted to cover up the other side. I'm going to make mine black with a marker when we get to that step. So I'm using this, and I've got some green. For this version, we're going to be stamping, but you definitely want to use a solvent-based ink, something that's like a StazOn. I've got a snowflake here in white, and then I have a leaf stamp, and I am going to stamp. And this one's going to take a little bit of time to dry, and if you want, you can even overlap your images. And the quality of the stamping doesn't matter because, once again, we're going to be cutting into this. And our last version is going to be a little bit messy. We're going to be using some alcohol ink. And so you just want to drop your colors on there. I am using Pearl. So hopefully you can see the shimmer happening there. Now, alcohol ink will dry relatively quickly, so not too concerned about the time waiting for this. However, you can go back in and manipulate. And so here I am kind of mixing. I'm going to take a cosmetic sponge and just see if I can move this around a little bit. So there I've got more of a gold background, so I'm going to go back in with my colors. And you can also use a tool to manipulate and kind of blow and splatter your colors out. And for this one with the alcohol ink, this step is not necessary, but what I'm going to do is put it in an embossing folder and send it through my embossing machine. I have a Gemini behind me, so I'm going to go ahead and emboss this. You want to make sure your alcohol ink is dry before you do this, and then I will show you what it looks like. All right, so here is the one that I embossed, and you want to be careful. Too much pressure, and you'll get pieces that cut through like this. Here. All right, so this area I won't use for making earrings unless I put another backing on the here. And that would be very doable by gluing a piece of cardstock to the back. And that is something we could do. The other thing I could do is now take like a sanding block to this, because the impression is indented into the surface. The color is going to stay where the leaf shapes are, and the background area that is raised is going to be sanded. So what that would look like, I can show that to you in just a second. All right, so with a sanding block, you could just go over the top. So I'm ready to die cut these shapes, and for the washi tape, I am going to use this shape here. Now, I could line it up straight. I like doing it at an angle. That way I am not so particular about the look that I get and lining things up, I'm going to use a little washi tape to hold things in place. And then I'm just going to send this through my die cutting machine, and then we're going to have to cut out the second version of it because I only have one die that's this shape. So my little die cutting machine is squeaky. I apologize for that. But you can see that this works really well. And if it doesn't come out right away, that's not a problem. Just push on it and it will come out. All right. So there is our first one. And then with the tape, I can just choose another direction here. Try to save some of what we've got going on. So I've got angle going in two different directions to coordinate with. And there is our first pair cut out. To stiffen up the backing on these, I am going to go ahead and cut out some black cardstock to put behind them. And I'll probably do this for all of them. If you want a much lighter weight earring, or if you're going to layer your soda can shapes, you could just color the backs with a permanent marker. So for the back of these earrings, I am going to be using a permanent high strength glue on the back, and I don't want that much, so I'm just putting a drop in the center, and I'm going to move it around a little bit. I will layer my cardstock on there, give it a nice push so that it smooths the glue out to the edges. However, I don't want to get it on my fingers, so you just want to be a little careful with this step. And it will dry quickly because it's like a super type glue. Of course, you could use super glue for this step. And this one isn't behaving. It may already be stuck down. It is. So we may have to trim a little on that one. But those are now ready to be coated. And the other thing I like to do is go around the edge of them, and I can show you that as well. One of my favorite ways to finish off the edge of the earrings is using a deco color. This is a oil-based permanent marker, and so I just lightly draw around the edge, and you can see it's going to give a so I'm kind of drawing on the paper and just letting a little bit of the ink get on the earring. All right. And this also covers up that little overlap error I had, where it didn't line up perfectly right. All right, so there. Just working on that one edge that's got a little bit more black showing. Now before finishing off my earrings, I like to coat them. And so here are the options that I use. You can use a UV resin, and it does go quick because of the light exposure. You've got a diamond glaze, which dries, I don't know, it says maybe 24 hours or so. So I would put that on and let it sit overnight. And the other one is this crystal lac. If you are sensitive to smells or chemicals or anything like that, this one is a water-based, epoxy-free, and it bonds to all different surfaces. So this is another option to use on top of these. The other thing you can do is that before you go to finish them off, you could add a little bit of glitter to them. And I'll show you how I do that is just with a glitter glue. Any kind of glitter glue is fine. And what I typically do is just put a drop in the center, very small little beaded drop, and then I just rub that around with my fingers. So you've got a little bit of shine, and that takes just a little bit of time to dry as well. So you can set that off to the side. I don't know if bringing these up close, if it will even be able to show you the shine on that, but it does add a little teeny layer of sparkle to your earrings. Since you have seen the die cutting of the shapes, I'm going to go ahead and do those off screen and then come back and show you what that looks like. I wanted to show you that if you don't have a die cutting machine, but you do have some punches, you can also line things up here and punch your shape out, and there you go. You've got a shape to work with. So a couple different options on how you can use this and make cute little shapes from your washi tape and soda can, and this would actually make really great charms. I'm going to do this one backwards so that the metal is actually curving in the right direction. So there, you see we've got a really nice little curved shape, and if you wanted to, you could use that to layer on top of or use as a dangle, like so. All right. So I feel like the little circles need a little something, and so I'm going to come in with some washi tape that coordinates and just add it to them. And I'm going with the area that is more blue and sparkly and floral. Kind of doing a half. Hopefully that helps it. And then I will just take some scissors and cut from the back. This would have been better to have, you know, die cut it with the tape on here. But sometimes mid-process, we just have to change things around. So give those edges a rub, and I'll probably go over it with the silver marker again. So pull that out here in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and apply UV resin on top of mine just to get them to go a little bit faster. So what I do is I put a nice drop in the center, and then with a micro swab I will go in and move that resin around. Now I am working under daylight light bulbs, and so that tends to harden resin, so you got to work quickly. And I am just trying to move the resin out to the edge. Of course, anywhere that I have missed, I can definitely go back in and rub it down again, or apply another coat is what I meant. So I'm going to let this go right up to the edges. Now if you like yours domed, you may want to do more than one coat. I am doing this without gloves on, so I am trying to avoid touching it with my skin. And I am not using a respirator so that I can talk to you while I'm in the process of doing this. But those are safety precautions that you definitely want to use if you are concerned. You may find that on the back, if you had any of your ink travel onto the back, that you may want to go over it with a permanent black marker still, even though we covered it with black paper. And I went over the edges with a very fine ink pen, and so now I'm just filling in the larger areas so that they match. You could also go over this and coat it if you wanted to with your resin or any of the other protective coatings if you want to protect the back. But a permanent marker is rather permanent and really doesn't need to be protected. But if you want to add another layer of protection on the back, which will also thicken up your piece, that is something you'd want to do at this point. Now, I usually wait until after the resin to go ahead and poke holes in my earrings, and the dies that I'm using actually has a little indentation to show me where, and so I'm using a jeweler's tool to go in and poke that hole. And you just want to go very carefully, because I can hear that the resin is cracking, so I may need to go back in and fix my resin, or if some of it's pulling away from the back, I may need to go in and work on that as well. So you want to be careful when you go to make your holes. And then the other option here would be using a Dremel type tool to drill in, and so I'm just going gently because the force on that resin, like I said, it can crack. All right, so I'm just checking these, and it looks like this one did give a little bit of lift on the paper, and I think it is really just the paper that lifted up the cardstock on the back. I'm going to touch it up with my marker so we don't see it. There we go. And I think we'll be okay with that. Then for these, I'm going to do a little bead dangle here in a color that coordinates. So I'm rotating opening, and I'm going to hang my jewelry piece on here. It's always harder to do on video than it is in person. So then I'm going to rotate that back. So notice that I am not pulling that apart. I am just twisting. And then I am going to twist this one open and put my ear wire on there. And the bead always likes to kind of get in your way and travel up the wire when you're working. But there is our first earring done. And I will just go ahead and finish off the rest of these and then come back and share. So there we have our 4 very different pairs of earrings that we made from one soda can. So if I bring them up close for you to see, so this is the embossed and alcohol ink version. This is the leftover vinyl. And on these, I just super glued on a earring back. This was the stamped earring set that I wasn't happy with the result, and so I added a little washi tape to the front and then did matching bead up here with the silver and the green. So there's that pair. And then the last dangle pair here is a 2-part that we did a punch and a die, but these were done with the washi tape. on the soda cans. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'd love for you to come see me at Try It, Like It, Create It. I share about different crafting tutorials, and I work with different brands, and so I do some unboxing and some education on how to use different crafting materials.